This video takes you through completing tab 6, Action Plan, and tab 7, Building a Case for Support, in the Adaptation worksheet. These have corresponding written guides in section 3.7 and 3.8 of Adapt to Survive. Now that some key features of each adaptation technique have been identified and you've determined whether an action is feasible, given your current circumstances in tab 5, you should have almost all the information required to create an adaptation action plan. The table in tab 6, Action Plan, shown here, will take you through identifying the elements needed to deliver on a feasible technique, such as resource, responsible team or individual, and the potential partners involved. Tab 7, Building a Case for Support, takes the adaptation techniques or actions you've determined are not feasible in tab 5 and prompts you to compare them with the priority level you've assigned to addressing impacts. This will then help you build a strong case for support for these adaptation outcomes and help you to prioritise which of these you would like to argue for. So when completing tab 6, you want to go on to tab 5 and filter so that you're only looking at techniques that you've determined as feasible already. So column M in tab 5 is currently feasible. You can see I've pre-filled some of these to say yes or no whether they're feasible. You can click the drop down on the start of the column and only select the ones that say Y, and then you've only got the adaptation techniques here that you've determined is feasible. What you want to do then is copy over the categories, the actions, and also the corresponding impacts addressed in column N into the corresponding columns in tab 6 in your action plan tab. Some of these have been completed for you here just so we can do an example. Then you can go into tab 4, Focus Areas, and for the corresponding impacts addressed that you've decided that are in those feasible adaptation techniques, you can use the priority levels you've determined here in tab 4 and also include those here. Have a look at previous video about completing tab 4 to see how to determine a priority level. Using this priority level here will enable you to order the techniques by whether they address higher priority impacts to help indicate which actions you might want to prioritise. Then you want to copy and paste any examples of impacts that you've already observed at your sites. These are in tab 2, Impacts, that you've got with the corresponding impacts addressed, which in this column they're in column C, called Potential Impacts. Wherever you've seen details of recent examples of the impact, you could also include those in here in the action plan. You'll want to copy and paste the amount of resource required, which you would have included here in prioritising by feasibility in column J. The team and individual responsible you may have already determined in a previous tab, or you might have not, and then you'll want to include that here and have a think about who might be responsible. And then finally you want to include any current barriers, which you've determined already in tab 5 as well. Current barriers, here's column L, and you want to include that here in column H. So as has been mentioned in a previous video which talks about how to use this worksheet more generally, all of these blue sections are filling in with information from a previous tab. So that's what you'll do here. Finally, you can take notes of any requirements that are met by these techniques or the impacts. Having a look at the appendix of the Adapt to Survive guide can help you identify some NHS requirements that are related to adaptation that some of these might do, so take note of these here if you can. And then you're getting to the point of filling out the real action plan section. Take another look at the columns you've completed so far to determine which actions you want to prioritise. The recommended way to do this is a few different steps, which are also laid out in Adapt to Survive section 3.7. So order by the priority level of impacts addressed, which is column D. So you click here, and if there were numbers here, let's say we've got, that's come up because I've used the 5 instead of 1 to 4. So let's say that those are there. Then we can click this, sort smallest to largest, or probably what you want to do is sort largest to smallest. So you've got all of your highest priority levels here at the top. Then you'll want to filter by techniques that address impacts you've already observed. So you probably want to be looking at So this will have free text in here. So let's say this one will say flooding on this date, heat waves happened multiple times, things like that might be included from previous things. And then what you can do here is you can click this button here and filter to remove blanks, so you've only got techniques included here where you've already got observed impacts, because they're probably going to also have a higher priority, for example. You can then order by resource required if you want. Again, there'll be sort of smallest to largest section there to see your quick wins, see what techniques are important but require longer term planning. You can also order by the team or individual responsible. This might help you indicate which techniques are going to be completed more quickly or effectively because of the teams that have more capacity, for example, and also make sure that you haven't just got a plan with 20 techniques that need to be carried out by the same team or individual, because that will be a question on capacity there. And then finally, you can filter by whether an adaptation technique meets any NHS requirements, as this is also a useful thing to know. This can help you plan when actions should be completed as well. For example, there might be deadlines for said requirements. Now, hopefully, you should be able to complete the column titled Action in this action plan, column J, using the information so far. So indicate which of the techniques you want to action or start to plan for now. You can use phrases here such as quick win, first task and finish group, start planning, consider this at the next meeting we have with XYZ. Once you've done this, you can complete the rest of the columns here for the actions you want to address to build up a more detailed action plan. There's a useful resources and contact section within the Adapt to Survive document, and you can use that to perhaps link to useful resources or potential partners that you might want to work with in sections K and L here. These resources might be things that help you identify next steps. They might be an evidence base for the techniques or help you better understand a technique as well. Some examples of things that might be included in your next steps column could be determine the trust's actions with the relevant committee or working group, investigate funding opportunities, write a proposal for funding from your integrated care system, assign the task to an appropriate team or individual, or determine your next update or review for the actions. If you can set deadlines for your actions, write these dates in the final column. Remember, this is a working document, so you should be updating your action plan whenever things progress or change. And hopefully this will be an action plan completed. Now, as explained at the start of the video, techniques or actions you determined weren't feasible can be used in a similar way to complete tab 7, building a case for support. This takes the actions that you've determined as not feasible in tab 5. So again, you'll just do what you did here previously by filtering by only the ones that are feasible, and this time you'll prioritise just by ones that you've said are not feasible. You'll copy and paste the respective columns, so category, action again, resource required, and impacts addressed, and include these in the respective columns in tab 7, so category, adaptation technique, impacts addressed. As you did before, go into tab 4, focus areas, to see where the impact's priority level lies, and then include those here again. Look at any observed impacts you've already seen, which you would have documented in tab 2. Resource required, I've mentioned, team and individual who might be responsible, and the current barriers as well, which are also in tab 5. The reason for carrying this out, as well as tab 6, is this helps you see the impacts addressed, how high a priority they are, and whether similar impacts have already been observed, to highlight the potential impacts of climate change that aren't sufficiently addressed in your action plan to help you build a case of support to address these. The other benefits to these techniques as well might be useful to list here in column K, as this allows you to show that not only these actions are worth a resource, but they can also be used to suggest techniques that you can integrate into plans on projects you already have resource for. For example, if an extra benefit is that it helps with decarbonisation, then you can maybe integrate the benefits of adaptation into your decarbonisation plans. The requirements met also helps you demonstrate how adaptation is beneficial but essential. Sometimes, again, see the appendix in Adaptation 5 for guides on this. Some examples of other benefits you can include could be cost savings, carbon sequestration, energy saving, reduced air pollution. A full list of more examples are also found in the Adaptation 5 guide in section 3.8. So once these tables are completed, there are two final tabs titled Overall Adaptation Plan and Summary Table, which are just examples of ways you can collate all the information you've produced in this plan. Feel free to play around with these tabs to produce tables or resources that are useful to your specific circumstances. For example, you might have teams that all they really need to see at this point is the next steps and deadlines, or you might be having examples where you need more specifics about the reasons for doing a technique and evidence based on why it's important to show to boards who are making decisions on these things.